And thank you once again, Madam Chair. Can I refer to my entry in the Register of Members' Interest? This has been a fascinating debate, which I think just demonstrates the support and affection our musicians are held in right across the House. And I also want to pay my appreciation to Tim Brennan, who's assembled this petition with customary energy, commitment and passion. I had the great fortune of having some modest success as a touring artist, having spent 16 years in the music industry as a keyboard player with Runrig. I was lucky. Runrig had top 5 albums in Germany, Scandinavia and the UK. We filled arenas and we managed to play at all the top festivals. And much as I love my time as an MP chair, that was just simply the greatest of times, something that every young artist dreams and aspires to. From starting out in that cramped transit van, guitar case on your knee, 4-tour room in some cheap hotel in Hamburg, Copenhagen or Amsterdam, spending what's left of your very modest fee on a beer after show, the dream that you will come back all conquering. Breaking Europe, building a career, that's what it was all about. Europe's on our doorstep, but it could sometimes feel like another world, a continent with a diverse musical taste, loyal fans, and almost inexplicable and insatiable musical curiosity. It's just the experience of being there, the excitement of performing in an array of wonderful destinations, sharing a musical exchange with people desperate to know where the music comes from and what informs it. Music is a border-free proposition. Bands are multinational. Music doesn't care which country it's in. It's almost the exact opposite of Brexit. Leaving the EU and ending freedom of movement was therefore always going to be a disaster for our artists and musicians. Never properly considered in any of the discussions, our artists and music industry have ended up as nothing but mere collateral, nothing but chaff in the tragedy that is ending freedom of movement. Like the rest of us, musicians will only be allowed to spend 90 days out of 100 in the EU. At least I think that's what it is, because nobody's actually clarified the situation for us. Now, a European tour, it could involve playing in anything up to 15 countries. Each of these countries with its own developed live scene, and each of these countries with their own demands in terms of transport and organisations. Now, bands tour because the economy of that is the cost of assembling crews, transport and organisational infrastructure. Now, I remember at the height of our success, sometimes we would be on the road for about half the year, mainly in Europe. 90 days could be almost over before the set list is properly bedded in. And musicians will always also now have to face these Brexit border arrangements to negotiate, and this will increase red tape and costs. The fact that a band's carny has become a political issue is almost surreal and extraordinary. Carnies are supposed to be boring. Under the new arrangements too, they will only allow two stops before a UK truck will have to return home. With that being the case, it has to be said that most European tours will probably just have to close. Then there's the new Brexit taxation and fiscal measures. There'll be new arrangements for national insurance, new arrangements for income tax, and there's VAT. I still don't know if it's going to be a requirement to register for VAT in all European countries. But whatever the outcome of all this, there'll be more accountancy costs, more hours spent on paperwork, more costs for artists. Artists just want to perform and create. They don't want to be overwhelmed with paperwork. Brexit was supposed to end bureaucracy and the bureaucrats. Drummers might end up as bureaucrats now. Can you think of the absurdity of that? And where touring is the prime generator of income for most artists, because, as we've heard, the pitiful return that artists now get for the recorded works with streaming and digital. There's one feature of touring that quite often can make the difference between profitability, break-even, or going under, and that's the merch. All the new EU rules could make that margin even more precarious. Profitability from merchandise could dramatically reduce, again, more barriers, more burdens, more costs. But it's a visa, it's a killer in all of this. And it's the one thing that could just make the whole enterprise simply not worth it. I think the first thing to note is that this government assured the music industry that it would secure an arrangement that would ensure visa-free travel. I remember quite clearly the former minister, the Honourable Member for Selby and Ainsty, saying explicitly that visa rules for artists would not change. And I think this is why this all seems like a total betrayal of a sector. And where it's true, there's some countries like France that have said they'll continue to allow visa-free travel for artists. Most have said they will not. Now, we don't know what the total costs are going to be, but let's generously assume that the cost of a visa, insurance, and other associated costs will come at around £300 per person. And that's been very generous. Now, a modest travelling outfit of 5 band members, 3 crew, a sound engineer, a tour manager, and a driver will mean additional costs of £3,000. And that's just for one country. This could be doubled, trebled, increased tenfold, dependent on how many countries will be included on that tour. Medium-sized and larger enterprises with their array of lighting technicians, set designers, PA crews, caterers and accountants could face costs of £10,000 before a sound check has even been done. And for bands operating at extreme margins, the EU will be closed because of these costs. And it's been said before, and it's worth, I think, reiterating in the sum up. The music industry is the UK's cultural jewel in the crown. Worth 5.6 or 7 billion to the economy, we are second only to the US in worldwide reach and impact. It's just something that we do spectacularly well. It provides this immense soft power for the UK. It's just and this is what makes the government's lackadaisical indifference to this even more bizarre. And I think we know that for this government, it's all about their obsession with ending freedom of movement. Nothing is more important than that mission. And if live music falls foul of that objective, it just looks like live music is just going to have to suck it up. And for all of the ridiculous EU blaming, the minister said the other week that people must have what they voted for. And the offer the EU made to allow visa-free travel for those 90 days was rejected because, as she said, it might just open the door. Can I remind the minister, it's this government that took us out of the European Union and ended freedom of movement. It was their lack of negotiating guile that has left our artists abandoned. I struggle to think of one artist who wanted this awful Brexit, but it's our artists that are left in a situation, have to pick up these pieces of something they wanted no part of. So it's up to this government to fix this out. What the government didn't count on was this backlash. The almost 300,000 people who have now signed the petition, the letter by the cream of UK talent, our top musicians, and the strong feeling right across the industry. The government versus our musicians and top artists isn't a good place to be for any government, and all anybody wants is for this to be fixed. Being phoned up by Sir Elton John in an evening warning about the demise of the touring sector isn't good for a Secretary of State. The UK government must work with the industry and negotiate a cultural exemption or a cultural passport as been explained and defined with the EU to allow our musicians, our crews to travel and work freely across the EU. We don't want to hear anymore that it's all the EU's fault. We want to hear what the government is actively doing. This petition shows the public really cares about our artists, that their music industry is something that they support, want to get behind and ensure that we get this fixed out. The government has said the door's open. The EU have said that they're prepared to discuss and negotiate. It's now time for the government to listen, to respond, and for goodness sake, get this fixed out.